You may know him as the owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you couldn't because you people are rebels, Chris was a prominent figure in the so-called restaurant rebellion. He really led the charge and he paid dearly for it. Now he's a prominent figure in the Alberta Prosperity Project. During the COVID-19 government overreaction, I was going to say pandemic, but he became widely known for defying public health orders by keeping his cafe open and feeding me for weeks on end as I sat by the dog food in the convenience store because the restaurant was so full of people supporting him. But he was arrested and he spent 3 days in jail. Ultimately, he was acquitted of all the charges after the court ruled that the orders he was accused of violating were improperly enacted by Jason Kenney. Chris's unwavering stance made him a symbol of resistance for many who felt marginalized during the pandemic. He now channels all of that experience into advocating for Alberta's sovereignty and prosperity. Chris, you've got 10 to 15 minutes. And like really, not Ezra 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, that works. Wow, I haven't got that kind of applause since I released my latest burger. So, thank you very much. Some of you might have this burning question, and the question might be something like, why in the world is this roughneck turned waitress slash burger flipper involved in events to do with reshaping the structure of Canada? And I ask myself that same question almost every day. How is it that I ended up here rather than on a rig somewhere or in my kitchen making hamburgers? And the answer is, it's pretty simple. The government made me do it. They really did. I didn't want any of this. Yeah, thank you. I'm also a comedian. You watch for my late night show. I didn't want any of this, but I was put in a position where I either had to do something or just can I say bite the pillow? Is that too crude? I had to either do something to change what was happening or just, submit. And I chose to do something about it because I guess sometimes we have to do that. And in this journey, I've come to some really interesting realizations about who we are, the structure that we're in, and what it means for our futures. At one point in my life, I would have said, actually I've said this lots in the playground as a kid, well, it's a free country, isn't it? When asked something, can I play with that? Oh, it's a free country, isn't it? I would have never thought that the government would tell a restaurant to ask their customers for their papers before they serve them a hamburger. I would have never in my life thought that the government would tell a church congregation that they couldn't gather to worship. Like, these are things that were so outside my thinking. When it happened, it was like, it hit me like a freight train. And that's actually happened to me before too, so I can tell you it's very similar. That's another story. So I ended up, my whole worldview changed, and I started wondering, like, okay, well, maybe freedom isn't what I thought it was. Maybe, the idea that Canada's the freest country on earth and we can just kind of do what we want as long as we're not hurting anyone, maybe that's not really the case. And then I started thinking about it more, and I realized that, maybe this whole structure that we find ourselves in isn't broken. Maybe it's working exactly as it was intended to, but now some of us have been affected to the point where we need to fix it, and we're paying attention. We've woken up to the fact that things aren't what we thought they were. Is there anyone in the room today that would say that their worldview is vastly different today than it was 5 years ago? So that brings up a question. What do? Do we bite the pillow or do we change our situation? I agree. We need to change our situation. I've learned a lot from people like Corey Morgan and Dr. Wagner and even Peter over there. And today, actually, I had a phone call. Hey, I like Peter. You should hear him at the UCP AGMs. It's fantastic. And the accent makes it better. But even my new friend Gordon Kessler called me yesterday to kind of ask me my thoughts about what's going on in Alberta. And we had a really good conversation. And it was awesome to be able to talk to him because Mr. Kessler was the first and only separatist ever elected to the Alberta legislature. And I don't know, was he Western Canada Concept or Independent? I can't actually remember. WCC. He was WCC, yeah. He was the only one. So to talk to him and get his insight about all this was very enlightening. Now, I've heard people grumbling about taxes my entire life. I've heard people grumbling about equalization ever since I moved to Alberta in 2000. These have always been topics on our mind, but they've never resulted in the kind of groundswell independence movement we see now. Have you considered what the difference is today than it was, in the last 20 years we've been paying equalization? For me, the biggest thing, and I've been a separatist or a sovereignty-minded Albertan for the last 4 years, what changed for me was the realization that we've tried all of the things. We've tried it right from, in the early 80s, there was Elmer Knutson with his WestFed. He wanted to fix Confederation by having a Western Confederation to represent our values. And then, we elected some conservative prime ministers and thought, oh, they're going to fix what's wrong, and it never happened. We elected, or not elected, but we built the Reform Party, and it was an absolute political revival. And we were saying that we want a seat at the table. We want to fix these inequities so we can all get along, unify, and have a stronger Canada. And we were basically flipped the Alberta salute again. The West wants in, we don't want you in. Sorry, West. And if you look at it from the perspective that, Canada's this great inclusive country, we're unified, everyone's supposed to be equal and get along, you would think it's broken. Until you rewind about 150 years and you understand that this is exactly the way it was intended to be. As a matter of fact, before Alberta and Saskatchewan even existed, a man named Clifford Sifton was kind of courting the idea of the West joining Confederation. Now, this is before Alberta and Saskatchewan were carved out in the Northwest Territories and legislated into existence. But he delivered a speech in Saskatchewan, and it went something like, "We and all Canadian patriots desire the great trade of the prairies to build up our factories and enrich our lives in every conceivable way." He was saying, we want the West to join this confederation and be part of this country so that we can exploit their resources. And from that moment until today, and I hope this changes next year, it has not changed. Farmers in the West could not buy equipment from anywhere other than Eastern Canada. So we enriched their lives and built up their factories that way. We couldn't sell our grain. My friend Rick Strankman actually went to jail to prove a point that that was his property and he could sell it to whoever he damn well pleased. All sorts of things. Our equalization formula. Alberta has massive resources and massive wealth. We work hard, we prosper, and we give a portion of that to equalization to be distributed out to other provinces. That's included in our equalization calculation. Quebec has massive hydroelectric and electricity exports in the United States that aren't included. So we're giving a province that is very wealthy, and by the way, sits on all hell for abasement, which has tons of natural gas. We're giving them a portion of our hard-earned money while our veterans freeze to death on the streets of Edmonton and Calgary every year. And I want to fix these things. I want to see all of the things that Peter's going to talk about. I want to see them happen. I want to see all these issues with Confederation fixed. But I know there's only one way to do it. We've tried before. We've tried electing a conservative federal government, and I use the term conservative lightly. We've tried that. We've tried to bring the West in with the Reform Party, and nothing's worked. We've never had the leverage we need to change these things. Now, you'll hear the word unity quite a bit in the next little while. And I agree 100% that we need to unify, but we need to unify around something that's plausible and probable, something that can yield tangible results for all of these groups that want different things. Peter's going to explain why he wants, with Project Confederation, to fix the inequities in Canada and get to a point where we can all coexist. Corey's going to come up and he's going to say, you know what, we need out, and here's why. I'm telling you right now that no matter which of these paths you want, whether it's a stronger, more united Canada within Confederation with all these things fixed, whether you want to be a sovereign Alberta as an independent country, or you want to join a bigger country that happens to be south of the border, the one thing that we need, that we can all focus on and all unify, is that referendum. Why? Because that's the only thing that's going to let any of those things happen. That's the only leverage we could possibly have to open the Constitution and amend it, is under threat of Alberta leaving and taking the $17 billion a year that we ship to the rest of the country away. That's the only thing that's going to happen. The only way we're going to be a sovereign Alberta is if hundreds of thousands of Albertans sign a referendum to say what Jeff Rath said, my friend Jeff. He says, do you want Alberta to become its own sovereign nation and cease to be a province of Canada? We need that referendum. At the last event in Edmonton, I wanted to jump up out of my chair because people were asking the question, how do we do this? We need a central something to work towards this. And I'll tell you right now, no matter which side of this conversation you're on, there is a group that's doing this. And that group actually co-hosted an event with Rebel a couple years ago when Danielle Smith was vying to be the leader of the United Conservative Party. And Ezra asked her the question, if you try all these things to fix our position within Confederation and it doesn't work, how far are you willing to go? What is your else, and when would you use it? Was that pretty close? And you know what she said? She said, you are the or else. The Alberta Prosperity Project is the or else. This group, this network of people that's building this referendum database is the answer. If we can't fix things, it becomes the people's responsibility. So that's my message tonight. No matter which side of this conversation you're on, there is a clear path to a solution, whether it's one of those three things I mentioned earlier. It's something we can do, and I know we can do it because this province right now is on fire with the idea of freedom and prosperity. So that's what we unite on. That's our common focus right now, is getting enough people together to say, you know what, we're going to make a major change, whether it's one of these paths, but we're going to do it. We're not just going to sit around, we're not going to bite the pillow. We are done getting screwed.